It's the show where Hawaii's newsmakers come to talk and to take your questions live. From the nation's capital to Honolulu Hale, from the state legislature to the fifth floor, we bring the experts to you and ask them what you want to know. Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalesuji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
Hello and thanks for tuning in here on this Monday morning. I'm Ryan Kalesuji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This morning, we continue to spotlight tourism and focus in on a key area of our state that really is an instrumental and important part of the tourism industry.
That's right. The tourism industry has been called our economic engine, and right at the center of that, of course, is Waikiki. Welcome now to Rick Eggett. He is the president of the Waikiki Improvement Association, which represents businesses and stakeholders in that neighborhood. Rick, thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we've seen a lot of coverage just over the last few days in the Honolulu Star-Advertiser focusing on Waikiki specifically. I want to ask you about Allison Schaefer's piece that came out on Sunday talking about the St. Augustine by the Sea Catholic Church in Waikiki. They're resuming their meal service, free hot meals in the middle of the day, something that was suspended for a time because of concerns about folks who are gathering in that neighborhood. We know that, it's very important, of course, to balance the needs of those who are in need, but at the same time, some folks have some concerns. So tell us your reaction to those meals starting up again.
Well, our concern is that we certainly understand that the church wants to help those who are in need. But the problem that we have is that it's become a focal point for some of the troublemakers in Waikiki. It's really the reason we started Waikiki Safe and Sound, because we had a proliferation of shoplifting and even up to drug sales, and that area has become that hotspot. We've worked very closely with the mayor and with HPD and with our prosecuting attorney Steve Alm to really attack this issue, it's really just a contributory factor to attracting some undesirable elements to that area. But we certainly understand the church's position.
I'm not sure if there is an alarm going off, but there
is, and unless you suspend it, I can't go stop it.
Oh,
it started right as you started at 10:30.
Okay.
It's not my alarm; it's my colleagues.
I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We'll try.
Why don't you guys talk for a second and I'll go turn it off?
Sure.
Okay, sounds like a good idea. We'll give Rick a moment. Very interesting also just to see the changes that are happening in Waikiki. There's a very interesting piece today in the Honolulu Star-Advertiser talking about how Waikiki is really a foodie destination and all of the new restaurants and really high-profile chefs that have gravitated toward that area and tried to make it a destination. We know that food is so important, of course, for Kama'aina, but also for visitors and all those Instagrammable experiences.
Yeah, and really just a key factor in just continuing to evolve, noting that Waikiki is somewhere where that many tourists will flock to as we bring Rick back into it. Thank you. Thanks, Rick, for rolling with the punches here this morning.
My colleague, she went out for a cup of coffee and left her phone on the table and started off at 10:30. I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's live. We're live, and that's some of the things that you face when you're live, especially on live platforms such as this. Let's expand a little bit more about the Safe and Sound program that you kind of alluded to, and just your thoughts of how things have progressed. We know that this is a project that will take some time and will be an ongoing thing, but how have you seen some of the changes that have happened as a result of this program that was really spearheaded by the prosecutor's office and by HPD and the mayor?
Yes, what we've been able to see is a reduction in the amount of crime. If you look year over year, 2023 versus 2022 prior to Waikiki Safe and Sound. And what Safe and Sound has done has increased the amount of enforcement, HPD, and the amount of arrests, but most importantly, through the efforts of the prosecuting attorney's office and the cooperation of the courts, we've seen more consequences for committing crime. And that's really the key. That there has to be consequences for disobeying the law. And so what they've been able to do, we've increased the number of geographic restrictions. I think it's still over 100. which means that you're keeping 100 of the worst troublemakers out of Waikiki. And so that makes a difference in terms of the amount of crime that's actually committed. And the other piece of this is, of course, trying to improve the whole environment around Kuhio Beach Park. And that's been one of the main city pieces of this. And the mayor has fulfilled his promises and continues to work on making Kuhio Beach Park updated and better. The clock by the restrooms now actually works again. And so I think it's the old broken windows theorem. If we allow one broken window, then more bad things happen. So the city getting on top of all of the issues at Kuhio Beach Park has been a major contribution as well. So it's really Waikiki Safe and Sound has a safe portion, which is increased enforcement, better sentencing, more prosecution, but it also has a sound portion, which includes improving the environment. And actually our Waikiki Business Improvement District Association is in the final stages of hiring a coordinator. We hope to increase the amount of outreach and programs that's available for those in need in Waikiki as a result, to increase that sound portion of the community, Waikiki community.
You brought up the beach, and I want to ask you about those beach closure hours. That was something that your organization had really pushed for, extending the beach closure to go from 2 to 5 a.m. now to midnight to 5 a.m. Why did you think that was so important? And I think it's been in effect, I believe, about a month now. Is it, what are you seeing? Have there been any changes in that regard?
Yes, I think it improves the environment because it closes down that area in really, once you hit that really troubling time after midnight. My mother used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. But the thing is that we're able to make sure that the beach, the HPD is able to clear the Kuhio Beach Park. And soon we're going to be adding that portion of private sector beach, which is the area in front of the Moana and the Outrigger Waikiki and the Royal Hawaiian. That should soon be also changed to a 12 o'clock closing time. The decision has been made to do it. We have to update the signs, and we'll get the announcement out shortly. So as of right now, the closure is still 2 a.m. there. So what you want to prevent is people who are moved out of Kuhio Beach Park just moving over to that section of the beach. So we want to be consistent.
And if you can talk to some of the things that you have seen, have you noticed any pushback from the community, from those who maybe want to stay there longer? And how has the enforcement been overall of just this one area thus far?
Well, HPD has done a terrific job, and then also the city has brought on some private sector contractor as well to help with this effort. It's particularly valuable because HPD, of course, has been having manpower issues. They hope to improve that over the years. I think the city has actually put more money in the city budget, but it takes time to recruit and train new police officers. But that enforcement has been very effective. We've been able to keep those areas clear after midnight. And in the area in front of the hotels, which is still at the 2 a.m. closure time, it really made a big difference because you were getting people there who were staying overnight, leaving a lot of trash that needed to be cleaned up before the morning. And so that whole initiative of the earlier closures has been a real positive for the area.
There's a question here from the audience about restrooms, and I want to expand it out, but I'll read it first. Marcia asking, might it be possible to have some public bathrooms that are monitored by an attendant, such as you sometimes see in other countries, to guard against vandalism, etc.? We know that there are a couple of bathrooms, public restrooms along the beach. Do you feel that there are adequate restrooms as is? Do you think there should be more? And do you think that there should be more monitoring of these spaces throughout the day and into the evening?
I think during the day, there's adequate restroom space. Back when in the early, right around 2001, when Kuhio Beach Park was expanded, they actually added additional restroom facilities on Kuhio Beach Park. So after that addition was made, I think there's adequate during the day. When the park closes, there's only one restroom that remains open. That's the one that's in the same building as the police substation and the snack bar there. And the Business Improvement District Association does have security that monitors it, but from the outside. So they monitor the amount of time when someone goes in there, and if they're in there for a long time, they let the police substation know so an officer can go in and check on them. But we don't have attendance either during the day or at night. That has not been something that we have discussed as an option, but I think it's a good suggestion. That's something that we could look into going forward, because the viewer is very correct that restroom vandalization is a real problem. And it's sad, because when you think about it, they're vandalizing something that's there for their use. And so you would hope that people would appreciate that and take care of the public facilities. And I think by and far, most people do. It's just that as usual, it's just that very small minority of troublemakers that make it hard on the situation for everybody else.
In this conversation thus far, we've mentioned HPD quite a few times about their role and just the importance that they play in keeping that area safe. Of course, we know that they have that Waikiki substation that's also there. But overall, there is a shortage of police officers on the force. HPD continues to struggle with filling some nearly 400 vacancies. And it's, Chief Logan says that it has impacted just what they're able to provide overall for patrol officers in areas like Waikiki. Do you feel that there is enough police present in the area? Would you call on or ask for more police presence patrolling the streets, knowing that this is an area that often sees an influx of crime from time to time?
The police presence is really critical. I think the number one deterrent to crime is having police presence. And would we like more? Obviously, we'd always like more, but I think the HPD does the best it can with the resources it has available. So I don't have any real complaints about the way HPD deploys its resources at this point. I know that they're putting a lot of effort into Waikiki, because there's no question that Waikiki is also their hotspot, in terms of the most activity. And the old adage of, why is there crime in Waikiki? Why do we need more police in Waikiki? It goes back to the old, why do we rob banks? It's because why do criminals rob banks? Because that's where the money is. And that's the case in Waikiki too. So we need that increased presence. We also have been able to make strides due to the vigilance of our residents and our commercial properties. And that has also really helped this whole effort.
I'm interested, one of the things that makes Waikiki a lot of fun is that there is so much energy. It's a very vibrant neighborhood. But we do know that there have been a number of noise complaints, just that some people come down there, play stereos quite loudly, maybe street performers who are, going above the allowed limits. There had been a bill that was passed by the city council, but that the mayor then vetoed about sound enforcement, specifically in Waikiki. And basically, the reason for that veto that was given was that it was just too hard to enforce. But there is existing legislation, there are laws on the books that say you can't play, music or different devices at certain levels. How do you think that's going? I know that there were some people who were disappointed by that veto. And do you feel like the situation has improved when it comes to the noise level, particularly for the people who call Waikiki home?
Well, the Waikiki Improvement Association, we work very closely with the Waikiki Neighborhood Board. I think one of the real reasons we've been successful in improving Waikiki over the years has been this partnership between the businesses and the residents. We really have a lot of the same values and a lot of the same problems. So working together has made a big difference. So we work together with WI, work closely with the neighborhood board on this sound issue. So we did support that bill, and we're disappointed when it got vetoed. But we then met with HPD, the City Corporation Council, the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and the city with the mayor, him personally, and went over this whole issue. And the HPD said that they would contribute to the solution by enforcing the nuisance law, that there is a nuisance law in the books that so excessive noise can be considered a public nuisance. And so this HPD has been using that public nuisance law to address excessive noise, particularly by street performers, but sometimes it's other players as well. And so far that has been pretty successful. We're pretty happy with the way that has worked out. So kudos go to Major Platt, who's our district director, and to HPD for making the existing law work. It's always better if you can make existing law work than just adding another law. And so this was, I think, a real win for the community. And I really appreciate the effort the mayor personally took to get involved in this, and then HPD's initiative to address what was definitely a problem for both residences and businesses in Waikiki.
Yunji had mentioned that it's a fun area, and of course, with that becomes a lot of these street festivals, these ho'olauleas, these parades that often take up a large stretch of Waikiki. And while it is fun and it's a great attraction for tourists, for those living in the area or who work in the area, it causes some concern with just traffic congestion and rerouting. I'm wondering, how do you find that balance between finding those opportunities to have such events and that require some of the closures of key areas and thoroughfares of Waikiki, while managing traffic as well as just access to the area when a large portion, especially of Kalakaua, is closed down for them? How do you regulate that and find that balance?
We're very concerned about that, the way this situation has developed. We have less problems with things like parades and sporting events because they're a shorter period of time and they tend to be during the day hours as opposed to in the evening hours when Kalakaua is most busy. And so, but it's these street festivals that close Kalakaua from 2 p.m. in the afternoon to midnight that are really disruptive. And what has happened is several for-profit companies have sort of flooded the lottery and been able to secure a lot of these events. They're limited to 12 per year. That doesn't include the legacy events like Aloha festivals and the Pan Pacific Festival and things like that. But the Honolulu Festival, Kamehameha Day Parade, those are legacy events. The 12 is the additional events. And so that may be too many. We're working with the neighborhood board and with the city Department of Transportation Services and our council member, Tommy Waters, who's also the council chair, obviously, to look at reducing that number of events. The problem is that under the law, these events are supposed to have a public benefit, not be a for-profit event. And so, and the difficulty comes from defining the public benefit. And these for-profit events have been able thus far to get around the law citing the need for a public benefit. And so I think the only alternative is to reduce the number of these street festivals.
I'm interested to know what you think is an appropriate number, because you do make a good point. I actually happened to be in that area not too long ago, out with my husband, and we noticed that there was a street festival, and it wasn't for any specific event. It wasn't Spam Jam or something that was clearly marketed. It was just a lot of food trucks and vendors. And while it did seem fun for the people who were walking through that area, you do have to think, what if you're a tourist and you're just arriving? How do you get to your hotel? Or what if you need to get to the airport and that whole road is shut down for, as you noted, quite some time? What do you think is a more appropriate number of these events? And how would you what would be a public benefit that you think would justify having that kind of a lengthy closure?
Well, I think that the public benefit has to be not just money. It has to be, is this event representative of the community? And in some way, bringing our visitors together with the community. But I think that the numbers that we've been seeing recently are such that I think these street festivals should be limited to one per trimester, which is the way the city does the lottery, which would be 3 per year. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean limiting sporting events and parades, because as I said, they're much less disruptive. But the street festivals, I think, need to see a much more radical limitation.
Another big project that has gotten some publicity is the Alawai pedestrian bridge that is being proposed. Of course, that would be on the other side of Waikiki from Kalakaua, and on the Alawai, connecting the neighboring community over the channel and that bridge that is proposed for the area. Your thoughts on maybe some of the benefits, or your just overall thoughts about what that could potentially mean for the community?
I think that the bridge is a great idea. I think it'll improve pedestrian and bike access. It's not a vehicular bridge. between Waikiki and that neighborhood and the University of Hawaii primarily. Now, a lot of the concern has come, although less than a majority in the surveys the city has taken, the majority supports the bridge, but there are some real major concerns expressed by some of the individuals. I think some of the individuals who live in the area, and I think that the bottom line is they're concerned that an already congested area will become more congested. My view as an urban planner is that actually adding this bridge, it's not going to solve the problem of congestion in the area, but I think it'll actually, to a small degree, relieve congestion. I don't think you can add additional cars parking in the area because the area already has no parking in the evening. It's full. You can't have more than full. And so I don't believe it's going to add to the problem. I do believe it'll have a benefit. It also has a major benefit in terms of being able to evacuate Waikiki in times of, say, a tsunami or a hurricane. You need to be able to get people out of Waikiki. And the last time we tried to evacuate Waikiki, it was gridlock. That was many years ago, but it changed the whole evacuation plan. Right now, we believe in evacuating, going up into the stronger buildings. But I think there needs to be, particularly for residents in Waikiki, a way to get out of Waikiki in a more efficient manner. And this bridge would provide that.
I want to go back just really briefly to the festival question, because we're getting a bunch of comments here just asking about, a lot of folks agreeing with you that 3 per year seems reasonable. How soon do you think that change could go into effect? What's your timeline for lobbying for that? And when could that actually happen if you are successful?
Well, of course, it would have to be done by the city council. So we'd be working with Chair Waters, our council member, and I think a realistic time frame for being able to get it passed would be by the end of the year.
Rick, you've been in this position for some time now, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you've seen the area just evolve from when you started to where it is right now, because Waikiki has gone through different iterations and different phases, if you will, with modernization efforts, changing of sidewalks. There's just been a lot that has been done in the area recently. Your overall thoughts on the transformation and what your vision would be for maybe the next 10 years of things that you would like to see improve in the area as a whole?
Well, I think it's sort of a given in the community, but it's worth repeating, and that is that Waikiki is the generator of a lot of the economic value that tourism brings. We're really about 42% of all the tourism in the state is generated in Waikiki. And so Waikiki alone provides about 18% of the tax dollars. Maybe it's up to 20 now, given the increase of the city TAT, of all the tax dollars that the city collects. So it's a significant economic generator, over 55,000 jobs. And so the success of Waikiki has been really critical. And if you look at how Waikiki has evolved over the last 20 years, a lot of reinvestment has gone into Waikiki. Some government money, billions of dollars of private sector money. And that reinvestment in Waikiki that has come over the last 2 decades has enabled Waikiki to continue to be that economic generator. Without Waikiki, we would have had a very difficult time coming out of the 2007 recession. It helped us come out of the pandemic most recently. And so literally Waikiki carries the state's economy on its shoulders. And all those improvements in the private sector offering, in other words, what our product looks like, and the activities that take place in Waikiki, I think has been a real positive for the community, for the visitors. Waikiki is their window on the community and their base of operations. So I think it's been a real positive. Going forward, you want to see better, and something we're always working on, trying to improve parking and access in Waikiki, for example. We want Waikiki to become even more a gathering place for our community than it already is. It's already, I think, the gathering place of Hawaii, but in order to continue on that vein, we have to continue to get better, continue to offer more opportunities for the community, food, entertainment, and access, I think, are really critical to that. And those are the things we work on for the future. For the future, one of our other major challenges, of course, is climate change and sea level rise. We're actively working with the city and the state, and there our senator Moriwaki and our representative Tam have really supported us, and there's been money in the state budget to begin planning for Waikiki's adaptation for sea level rise. This is something, we've looked at this and we've worked closely with University of Hawaii. They're really a leader in this area, which is great that the university has been able to assume that role. But I think that there are ways for us to be able to keep Waikiki viable even up to the turn of the century. And that's kind of the benchmark. Of course, I won't be around at the turn of the century, but we want to be able to see that future for Waikiki and build for the future in Waikiki. In order to get there, you have to start planning now and start making changes to the improvements that you see in Waikiki so that they've been adapted for that sea level rise.
And, related to that, and we actually did a whole show with the Army Corps of Engineers, but there is a question here today, and I wonder if you could briefly answer this one, which is, what's your take on the Alawai Flood Control Project and the best solution for Waikiki? You mentioned climate change, and integrated in that, of course, is what's happening along the Alawai and the proposed improvements in the canal there. What are your thoughts about how that's going so far?
Well, I've been following the Army Corps' efforts here for over 20 years, actually 30 years. So it's a long time. It's been going on a long time. I'm not particularly happy with the idea that we have to have 6-foot walls around the Alawai, but I do believe it's possible to do this in a way that is not as damaging to the community if these walls are set back from the canal, so they're not just 6-foot walls right along the borders of the canal. And I think that will also increase the area that is available for flood control as well. I think these efforts are necessary, are important. One of the immediate, I think, effects of climate change is going to be an increase in storms. And so we really need to take these foresighted efforts, mitigation efforts, and begin to put them in place. So I do support the Army Corps and the city. This is really a joint initiative between the city and the Army Corps. I support their initiative. I think it's something we have to do. And I'm hopeful that we can work this out in a way that is most conducive to meeting the community's needs as well. I think the important thing to remember is we're putting these improvements in place for flood control, but they're going to be around all the time. And so they need to be designed such that they fit into the community, not just be a concrete barrier against flood control. And then I think the one other thing I would add there is I think we need to go beyond flood control for the Alawai. The Alawai is one of the most polluted waterways in the United States. And as a community, we just can't allow that to continue. So we need to work together with the state and the city to improve the environmental issues that in the Alawai watershed as well. And that's something that Waikiki Improvement and Waikiki Waikiki Beach Improvement District have been working very closely with a group called the Alawai Collaboration. And so we hope to be able to work with the city and come up with solutions that will meet a lot of these environmental concerns as well, the water quality in the Alawai, not just flood control issues.
Well, we are out of time this morning, but we want to thank you for joining us and giving us an update. There is always so much going on in Waikiki, and when you really break it down the way that we kind of talked about this morning, you realize that there are a number of issues that your organization continues to have to deal with. So we really do appreciate the work you're doing and also just the time that you spent this morning explaining some of the things that you're involved with. Rick Egan, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Hello. Well, great to hear from him and all of the things, as you noted, Ryan, that the association there is working on. We spent a lot of time talking about the dividends of the Safe and Sound program that the mayor and the city prosecutor have been working on, along, of course, hand in glove with HPD. There have been over 100 geographical restrictions. Those are individuals who are then not allowed back into that neighborhood for a period of time to kind of break the pattern of crime. And so far, it does seem that it's working. When we had Steve Alm on here, a couple weeks ago, he did share some of those numbers, and they were pretty drastic, especially looking at things like burglaries, and a lot of the crime that really kind of plagues that area. And so seeing that go down is really helpful. He also talked about how the new beach closure hours are going well, and that they are going to be expanding that into some of the areas that are considered private beach, those areas in front of the moana and so forth, so that there is a wider area that folks cannot spend the night on the beach.
Yeah, he talked about how right now, of course, it is confined to Kuhio area, but looking to expand that, moving down the beach so that people just don't move over into the other areas of the beach. Really citing that, saying that nothing good happens after midnight. So the Waikiki Improvement Association really taking that and really trying to find ways to minimize any potential for any wrongdoings or any accidents that may happen in the area by really pushing for those closures. We also heard his thoughts more on some of the festivals and events that take place and have become a big part of Waikiki, and his concerns overall that while it is a great way to provide an attraction for visitors in the area, it can also provide a lot of headaches for businesses, for residents, as well as for visitors who may be arriving or trying to leave the area when Kalakaua is shut down. He mentioned that there are 12 events that are allowed in the area for a year, but and this does not include some of those more legacy events that we see year in and year out, but really a push to maybe minimize that and cut that number back from 12 to potentially 3 a year. And this would just overall help with traffic flow and just not congesting the area, potentially looking for other places in Waikiki that could host this, but not necessarily areas that require the complete shutdown of Kalakaua.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense if you think about just what he was talking about, that they are going on from the mid-afternoon all the way until midnight. And of course, Kalakaua, a major thoroughfare through that area and a really necessary point for people to get in and out of the neighborhood. You hear a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hope for that community. He says that he's been tracking things there for some time, and he is very heartened by what is happening, especially when it comes to crime prevention. Talked a little bit about the Alawai Bridge project that would connect the other side, the Alawai side, to University Avenue, that would be a pedestrian bridge to bring in folks on bicycles and walking, and that would also help folks who are in Waikiki, if there is any kind of a disaster event, that they have another route to get out, because we know that is such a congested area. And then briefly touching on the Alawai Canal and the Army Corps of Engineers and their project there. So always plenty to talk about when it comes to Waikiki. On Wednesday, we are going to be shifting our focus to the state economy.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be getting an update on how things are moving forward in the economy, and looking forward as we talk about some of the potential challenges with the tourism industry as a whole as well, how the tourism industry and how the numbers overall may be affecting the economy, as well as getting just a projection of how things are shaping up for the rest of the year. We look forward to seeing you right back here on Wednesday for another episode of Spotlight Hawaii. Aloha.
Aloha.